Okay. Hello, Irene. Wonderful to speak with you today. I am a 29-year-old gay male, so I don't know if menopause is my particular area of expertise, but it sounds like it's yours, so I'm glad there's one of us. Um, let's get started with this. Tell me about menopause and like how did you come into this work?
I'm a pharmacist by training, and then I also became a menopause expert. And talk about like differences, right? So you're male and you're young, and I'm female and I'm a lot older. But so basically, I've been through menopause. Menopause is about hormones. So if you know anything about women, we have a menstrual cycle every month. And so menopause is basically when we stop having that cycle. So we're no longer fertile. Our ovaries no longer have eggs that are being produced. And it causes a lot of issues for women. I would say it's one of the last taboos, that and sex in women over 52 as well, that we just don't talk about. And so women suffer with it. They suffer with it needlessly. And I am a healthcare practitioner. And so about, I would say at least maybe, 2000 or something, I started looking at it because pharmacists were going through a change in their profession, and we were providing one-on-one consultation. So we do more than just count pills, but it was becoming that we were doing more and more clinical services. People were coming, and women specifically were coming to me and asking me at the time about hormone replacement therapy, because that was the clinical guidelines that every woman, unless they had contraindications, went on hormones. And so it was also about lifestyles. It was about taking supplements. And I'm trained from the UK, so I did my pharmacy degree at the London School of Pharmacy. So I've always looked at it from what we call either a functional, like, an integrative approach. I use herbal medicine in my practice and homeopathy, as well as traditional, like allopathic medicine, and that too as well. I think we rely a lot too much on prescription medications, and we don't look at the basis for health. And that's what I'm about too as well, is that women not only having balanced hormones from perimenopause, which occurs about 10 years before women actually goes into menopause. The average age of menopause is around 50, but then they get things like osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, suffer with heart attacks and strokes. So we want to prevent chronic illness, but we also want them to live well. So it's about sort of having a healthy lifespan. Rather, we don't all want to live to 100 if for 30 of those years we have chronic disease. But there is this issue that we don't talk about as women. Healthcare practitioners don't prepare women for it. So they really land into it having all these symptoms and think their body's falling apart. They think they're literally going crazy, and no one's told them what's happening to them. They feel that they're not being listened to, which is another of my passion, is educating, informing women about what's going on. And so I gradually developed my practice around menopausal women, balancing their hormones, teaching them, what foods they can eat, what supplements go together. So a personalized plan. And I've gone from doing one-on-one consultations, but obviously you can burn out and you can only do so many of those in a week. And I still work in community pharmacy, doing consulting and working, as a traditional pharmacist behind the counter. But I also I've started doing workshops, doing retreats, and I'm also developing an online program so that I can give my program to many, because unfortunately, as I say, there's lots of myths, there's a lot of taboos about balancing hormones out there. And women are suffering. They don't need to suffer. I think they need to know that menopause is a natural transition. It's not a disease. However, the symptoms they're going through often are normal, but they're often not given solutions. And so, as I say, they think they're like losing it. They have no energy. They're not sleeping at night. Their weight is changing. And they're going through all these issues and that too, but nobody's there to help them. And physicians and most healthcare practitioners are not trained in menopausal medicine for women. They maybe throw out prescription medications like sleeping pills and antidepressants, which have a place, but it's not the answer to balancing hormones. And because of a study that was done about 14 years ago now that came out showing that there was a lot of sort of side effects and risks with hormone replacement therapy, a lot of women are scared of it. But we now know, 15 years later, that there was a lot of issues with that study. It wasn't in younger women, it wasn't in healthy women. And now hormone replacement therapy, we say the benefits outweigh the risks for most women. But again, they're not getting told of that. They're scared of hormones. They think they're linked to breast cancer and that. And so, as I say, they are suffering needlessly. There's huge statistics on the workplace, how women are being treated, because a lot of women at the prime of their profession, in their 50s and their 60s, they're not retiring yet. And yet they're embarrassed. They can't talk to their managers about what's going on in their life. And the managers often don't understand them. I mean, they're often male and they're often younger than them.
Yeah.
So, we've got a disconnect here. And that's my passion, to educate and inform women about what's going on in this time of their life.
Thank you. And so tell me more about hormone replacement therapy, and what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions, and what are some of the benefits or the reasons to do it now?
Well, as I say, I think a lot of women, they know about birth control pills, and we are putting women in perimenopause to balance hormones on birth control pills until they normally go through menopause. And yet when they hear about going on hormone replacement therapies, or they stop the birth control pill when they no longer need it, they start to have those symptoms like, the sleep, the mood changes, the memory issues, hot flashes and night sweats, and changes in libido, sexual drive. And yet they think that they're scared about it because, as I say, there was a big study called the Women's Health Initiative that showed that there was increased risk of cardiovascular disease, increased risk of stroke. As I say, over a decade later now, we know that most younger women don't have high risk for some of those issues. And in that study, they used what was called synthetic hormones, which they found increased cholesterol, increased cardiovascular risk. But when you look at the younger cohort of women, so it's like there's this window of opportunity in younger women to treat those symptoms like the memory, the sleep, the hot flashes, the mood, and that too as well, where women will act. It's about quality of life. And so we were starting to say to women, okay, there is no solution for you, or, we can't give you anything except prescription medications, but we won't give you hormones. And now we're saying, in the younger woman, that quality of life is a huge issue. We shouldn't be telling women to just basically live with it, because those symptoms now last longer than we think. Women can have hot flashes up to 10 years and sometimes longer. About 80% of women are suffering with these symptoms and not offered solutions. So we know, we've learned from that study, the Women's Health Initiative, that in younger women and using the right hormones at the right dose does help with all these issues and doesn't seem to have a negative effect on cardiovascular disease. And in the younger women, there was actually a decrease in overall deaths. So there was an increase in mortality. And we're still living in those. A lot of healthcare practitioners have not updated their information. And I'm a certified menopause practitioner, so I've kept up with the recent information, but unfortunately that is not getting out, and women are not getting informed of that, so they're not getting offered appropriate solutions.
So where would you like to see both your work, like what would be your dream kind of solution for this? What's your vision for women and menopause, and how this gets dealt with differently?
I think we need to take it out. We need to educate. So my prime market target is obviously women from 40 to 60 who are suffering, who need help, and just don't know what to do. So they're online, they're in Facebook groups, and unfortunately they're getting the wrong advice. So what one person tried may not work for them. So I really want to have this online program so that I can reach more people and that we can work in groups. I also think that we need to have more women's, sort of in the UK, they've started these menopause cafes. And I find when I get women together in groups, and I think we can do that. We really need to educate and inform women. So there's that market, absolutely, the women are going through it and suffering, but there's also the healthcare practitioners. Recently, I just spoke at Toronto University conference, which was for pharmacists. And it was informing and educating pharmacists how to deal with women going through menopause, and also how to set up a menopause clinic in their practice. So I think that's applicable. I think we need to, get away from the taboos and the myths and that too as well, that we can't talk about it. We have no problem talking about erectile dysfunction and drugs like Viagra and having Facebook ads for that. And yet they will
Mm.
not allow ads on Facebook that talk about sexual health in women.
Really?
Yeah. We can't
Interesting.
mention the V word either.
Yes, yes, fascinating. Well, thank you for this. Before we wrap up here, I'd love for you to tell me, what do you most need help with right now?
I think I need help with marketing. You know, how do I reach that bigger audience? Because I've always worked on one-on-one. I'm a
Mm.
healthcare practitioner. That's what I'm used to. So that is really getting out of my zone, because we're not used to healthcare practitioners holding sort of like group sessions and
Mhm.
working with women on this like a group healthcare system. It doesn't exist. You know, we're used to a time commitment where you go and see someone. Physicians don't have the time. It's 5 to 10 minutes. When I do an individual appointment with the patient, I can spend up to 2 hours with that patient. So we need somehow to be able to sort of mass produce that, and also allow women to feel comfortable. And I want to know how to do that online, but I also think that we can combine that with bigger like retreats and workshops for women that are in this age group and are suffering and need to be educated, but also have fun. You know,
Yes.
women want to get their energy back. They want to get their sass back. Like, you know, so they want to go from harassed and hormonal to calm, cool, but still sexy.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Irene. This has been enlightening for me, to say the least. So thank you so much. Before we wrap, where can people find you online, and how can they get in touch?
So I wrote the book, Hot Chicks, Hot Sex, How to Survive Menopause. So I have two websites. I do have one under irenehogan.com, but there's also one under Hot Chicks, Hot Sex. Just make sure you spell Hot Chicks, HOTCHIKS, because no, that's wrong. No, CHIXS.
I see it in the back. Yes,
right?
yes, it's okay.
My book, okay. If you spell it the other way, you'll get some very interesting websites coming up.
Yes, yes. I see what you mean now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much, Irene. Thanks for being on.
Thanks so much, Dan.